Start investing before you fall behind. This is something that I hear people say all over the internet. I've had some university lecturers say somewhat similar things to me, and just my friends around me who have also started investing. So, is it true? Why are people saying that you're going to fall behind if you don't invest? So I kind of looked into it, and here's what I found. Okay, so first of all, what is investing? Investing is using money to buy, literally, it could be, there's so many different things. You could buy stocks, you could buy Pokemon cards, Lego, cryptocurrency, even just a savings account is almost investing, not quite. They're different things, but investing is essentially using your money to buy something that you can then sell in the future and it's worth more. Take Pokemon cards, for example, something that I'm sure you know what they are. Everyone knows what Pokemon cards are. They love them. People will buy the packs of Pokemon cards when they release for, say, £5, and then they'll instantly start selling them online for, say, £10. That's 100% profit. You're making double the money. You spent £5, and the thing that you bought then over time became worth more. That's just scalping, that's a different thing, but if you take into account that people have cards from the 1990s, the 2000s, they sell those cards for a lot more now than what they would have bought them for in the past. Now, I know you're probably sat there thinking, but inflation isn't the thing you're going to buy going to be worth more in the future. And yeah, I get you, that's what confused me when I was about 16 years old and I didn't really understand why things were worth more, because it was like, if I bought this for £10 and in 20 years it's worth £30, isn't that just inflation? But the whole point of investing is that you're putting your money into things that are going to be worth more than the accounted amount of inflation. So instead of it working and staying at the same level as what it would be worth, it's then gaining worth. That's why people invest in things like stocks and things of actual value, rather than just like you wouldn't buy like a brick and then sell that brick in the future for an extra £3 and you bought it just because it's now worth the extra £3. You want something that is going to go up in value, which is why the most traditional form of investing is stocks. Okay, so now that we've gotten the basic gist of what investing is out of the way, I say basic, rambled on a little bit, but I just wanted to put my own spin and take on what investing is and what things you could invest in. Anyway, I've invested in the past, and the main focus of this is that I want to invest again. And by want to, I mean I'm actively building towards investing again already. But what did I do in the past? So when I was really early into investing, I kind of just looked up the easiest way to make money. Not the fastest by any means. The fastest would be doing a lot riskier things like day trading and trying to make 1,000 in a day, like they do in The Wolf of Wall Street. But no, that's not feasible, and it's not something that I want to do. I don't want to be one of those day traders that is a douche and posts about his BMW, and obviously I know not all day traders are like that, but you know what I mean, like you understand the picture I'm talking about. But yeah, enough rambling. When I was in college and I was working my part-time job earning about £100 to £200 a week, roughly. Obviously, I was really financially irresponsible. I was buying fast food like every day of the week. I was spending my money on video games when I just didn't need to. But I was still investing. I would put £25 in every single Monday to just the S&P 500. I would use Trading 212 because it's just the easiest app that I've used. I've used a couple, but I just like Trading 212 a lot. But yeah, I would just put £25 in every Monday, which I then switched to doing £100 a month just because I saw a couple of studies. I can't find links. I have no proof of them. But I saw a couple of studies that people that were investing once a month rather than once a week. And it's the same amount, but once a month they were just earning more. It's just because, I don't know, you're likely to buy at lows. I don't know. I don't really understand that bit myself. I'll look back into it when I do my next stocks and investing video. But yeah. I would just put £100 a month into the S&P 500. I wouldn't check it too often. I'd see, if there's a big thing that happened. Around the time I was doing this was when the Trump tariffs, when the Trump tariffs happened, so the S&P went down a lot in value. So I did boost a little bit, and I did buy a couple £100 extra then, just because the S&P was was down quite a lot. So I knew it would come back up, because it's always going to come back up. It's the top 500 companies in the world. Like, that's not going to crash. It's a very safe form of investing. But yeah, that's literally all I did during college. I would just put in £100 a month into the S&P 500, a very safe bet, very safe thing to purchase. And then I got to university and I had no money left, and I then took out everything, or all but £250, well, £300, so that I could then live. So I went from about 1.4 grand in stocks and shares to 300, and £300 is where I'm sitting right now. I want to start investing again because I just want to work towards something, and I want to be able to develop money on the side whilst doing absolutely nothing. Like, imagine how good it feels to go to bed knowing that when you wake up in the morning, there's a fairly good chance that you made money just while sleeping. And stocks is a way to do that. It's like an income that you have whilst you're actually earning money. It's just you do nothing and it just generates money, as long as you do it properly. It's not a guarantee that it will generate money, but it is the most common way that people do that when they're not actively working. So I'm going to start investing £100 a month minimum. That's like the bare minimum. I will not invest less than £100 a month. And then any spare money that I have before a paycheck will go into stocks. I've got a decent amount of money in an emergency fund that I can't access. My life doesn't have too many responsibilities right now, so I don't need to have an emergency fund as much. It's unlikely that something will happen to me where I need to spend a large excessive amount of money. So I have a decent amount saved for anything that I might need to cover. But yeah, any spare money at the end of a paycheck, I'll just put into stocks, or I'll put half of it into savings, half of it into stocks. It depends how much is left at the end of the month. And with this £100, I have created a pie on Trading 212, and that's pretty much where all of my investment will go. I am going to spend the next couple of weeks researching into cryptocurrencies, primarily Bitcoin, because I do think that Bitcoin is something that is worth having a lot of money into. I do plan to have some money in gold and potentially silver. I haven't looked into them as much yet, but it's something that I want to look into to hopefully develop my portfolio. In my pie, there are a few different companies and a few. It's mainly just a few companies and the S&P, but those companies are as follows. Now, before I read out what I'm holding, I just want it to be very clear. This isn't advice. I'm not telling you what to invest in. I'm just saying that you should invest. But yeah, with that out of the way, I'm currently in my pie. I have Nvidia. I have just general Google, Apple, Broadcom, Cisco Systems, IBM, Microsoft, Qualcomm. I can't pronounce that. The S&P 500, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, and Palantir. Those are my current holdings. I've done a bit of research into which ones are doing well at the moment and which ones aren't doing so well. And hopefully, over the next year, that should start to average out and generate, I'm guessing about 10% per year. That's the aim, is to generate 10% income per year. And if after the first couple years that hasn't worked out, I can always move over and change my pie. But I will constantly be changing what's in the pie every couple of weeks, every month, if one of the companies doesn't do well. But I will also be putting some money into the S&P 500 extra and focusing on that just because it's a more consistent and safe way for someone who isn't... I'm not the most financially smart and financially aware. I don't know exactly what company's going to do well, but I'm doing my best to keep on top of things. And if I'm struggling for a month, then the money can just go into the S&P 500. Like that's also okay, because it has had 10% returns over the last 30 years. It's been a long time, but it's had a consistent 10% every year since it was a thing. Now, I have crunched the numbers, as people would say. If I put in £100 per calendar month minimum, and I average out at about 10% returning each year, I have found out 5, 10, 20, and 40 years how much I will have earned. In 5 years, my end balance will be £8,200, and that's considering I have contributed 6,000. So that's 1,900 with profit, given the extra 300 that I've already got in it. In 10 years, my end balance will be about £21,000. That will be with £12,000 contributed and £8,500 in interest. Now, in 20 years, the end balance is looking to be £74,000 to £75,000, with £24,000 contributed and £50,000 interest gained. Finally, in 40 years, when I'm 60 years old, which is just below the minimum retirement age, if I don't have any other forms of income, just £100 per month put into the S&P 500 or any stocks that make 10% over each year, that's compound interest, just to be clear, I will end with £573,000, having only contributed £48,000. Just for those who can't really do the math that quickly, that is £524,000 in interest just from putting in £100 per month. Now, that could easily be more. If I was to put in £200 per month, which if I'm working full-time and I'm able to keep my costs not too high, if I'm able to budget correctly, £200 per month at a 10% annual return would end me with $1.1 million in, well, £1.1 million, but that would end me with £1.1 million, and that's only contributing $96,000. That's very achievable, £200 per month, and my total contributions will only be £96,000. If we wanted to go even higher, the more you invest, you will just keep building and building wealth. On top of that, putting it at $250 a month, just an extra $50 a month, if I'm able to find that. I cancel Netflix, I cancel Disney+, Spotify, things that I don't need in my life, or I just don't eat out one extra time a month. I will then generate an extra £290,000 that I can use in retirement. That is a substantial amount. But yeah, those are my plans for investing. I believe that you should look into investing, whether you do it with stocks, whether you do it with Pokemon cards, Lego sets, literally anything, any collectible, anything you want to do, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, things like that. Just look into investing. I strongly urge that you do it. Don't just follow my video. Don't copy my investments. They're not the most optimized. They're not the best. They're just things that I genuinely believe in and companies that I think will do well. And the S&P 500 is always something you can fall back on. Find a reliable index fund. Don't look too much into dividends. They're great to have, but not when you're beginning. Dividends, something I'll cover in the future when I'm more educated on that. But yeah, this is someone who's getting into stocks, who's only done a couple of days of research and is highly motivated and just wants to develop wealth and financial freedom in the future. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.